A Christmas Courtship by Miles Calder. The air was crisp and the world was blanketed in a gentle layer of snow as Charlotte Avery stepped outside the Frosthaven Inn. The annual Christmas market was in full swing, its twinkling lights and festive stalls transforming the town square into a winter wonderland. Charlotte paused for a moment, taking in the familiar sights and sounds. The laughter of children chasing each other through the crowds. The aroma of mulled wine and freshly baked pastries wafting through the air. This was Charlotte's favorite time of year, but something felt different this December. As she made her way through the market, her eyes were drawn to a tall, dark-haired man standing by one of the stalls, examining a handcrafted wooden figurine. William Dawson, the newcomer who had recently purchased the old mill on the edge of town. Their eyes met, and Charlotte felt a flutter in her chest as William offered her a warm smile. Over the past few weeks, William had become a regular fixture at the inn, often stopping by under the pretense of needing directions or seeking recommendations. Charlotte couldn't help but notice the way his gaze would linger on her, or the careful way he would ask about her interests and dreams. There was a gentleness to him that intrigued her, a quiet confidence that seemed to draw her in. "Good evening, Miss Avery," William said, approaching her with the wooden figurine in hand. "I was hoping I might run into you here." "Good evening, Mr. Dawson," Charlotte replied, trying to suppress the smile that threatened to spread across her face. "Enjoying the market, I see?" "Very much so," he said, his eyes squinting at the corners. "In fact, I was hoping you might help me choose a gift. I'm afraid I'm quite out of my element when it comes to such things." Charlotte raised an eyebrow, amused by his sheepishness. "Well, I'd be happy to lend my expertise if you're willing to accept it." William nodded, his expression brightening. "I would be most grateful." As they wandered through the stalls together, Charlotte couldn't help but notice the way William's gaze would occasionally drift back to her, the corners of his mouth quirking up in a subtle smile. It was a look that spoke of an unspoken connection, a hint of something more brewing beneath the surface. When they finally parted ways that evening, Charlotte found herself replaying their interactions in her mind, a warmth blossoming in her chest. Perhaps this Christmas would be different after all. In the days that followed, William's visits to the inn grew more frequent, each one feeling a little more purposeful than the last. He would linger, engaging Charlotte in conversation about her hopes and dreams, her interests and passions. There was a genuine curiosity in his gaze, a sense that he was truly listening, not just waiting for his turn to speak. One particularly crisp afternoon, as Charlotte was bustling around the kitchen, kneading dough for the holiday pastries, William arrived with a bundle of fresh holly, its vibrant green leaves and deep red berries a striking contrast to the winter chill. "For the inn," he said, handing the bundle to her with a shy smile. "I thought it might add a bit of festive cheer." Charlotte accepted the offering, her hands still dusted with flour. "It's lovely, thank you," she said, her lips curving into a smile. "You're quite thoughtful, Mr. Dawson." "William," he corrected gently, his gaze holding hers. "I hope we're beyond formalities by now." Charlotte raised an eyebrow, amused by his forwardness. "William, then." "Much better," he said, a playful glint in his eyes. "And if I may be so bold, I was hoping you might accompany me to the Christmas Eve ball." Charlotte paused, her hand stilling as she processed his request. The Christmas Eve ball was the highlight of the season, and while she had attended in years past, it had never held quite the same appeal. But the way William was looking at her, his expression hopeful and sincere, made her heart flutter in a way she hadn't felt in a long time. "The ball?" she said, her voice soft. "I hadn't planned on attending." "I'd consider it a favor," William said, his tone lowering. "I don't know many people here, and I'd be grateful for your company." Charlotte paused, considering his words. In truth, the prospect of spending an evening in William's company, of being able to truly get to know him, was far more appealing than the thought of attending the ball alone. A slow smile spread across her face as she nodded. "In that case, how can I refuse?" As Christmas Eve approached, the town of Frosthaven was alive with excitement and anticipation. The grand hall that overlooked the market square was adorned with twinkling lights and garlands of pine, the air filled with the sound of laughter and music. When Charlotte descended the stairs of the inn, she found William waiting for her, his eyes widening as he took in the sight of her. She had chosen a gown of deep emerald green, the color bringing out the warmth in her hazel eyes. Her hair was twisted into an elegant updo, a sprig of holly pinned to the bodice of her dress. "You look stunning," William breathed, his voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you," Charlotte replied, feeling a flush creep up her cheeks. "And you look quite dashing yourself." As they made their way to the ball, Charlotte couldn't help but feel a flutter of anticipation. The grand hall was alive with music and laughter, and as they entered, she couldn't help but notice the way people turned to watch them. She and William made a striking pair, her radiant in green, him tall and confident in his well-tailored coat and cravat. When the music started, William gently took Charlotte's hand, guiding her onto the dance floor. As they began to move, Charlotte felt a sense of calm wash over her. William's movements were sure and steady, his hand firm at her waist, and she found herself trusting him, letting him lead. "You seem lost in thought," William said as they glided past the other couples. "Care to share what's on your mind?" Charlotte hesitated for a moment, then decided to be honest. "I was thinking about you, actually," she said, her voice soft. "Wondering why a man like you, who could have his pick of any city in the country, chose to settle here." William's smile was slow, but it reached his eyes. "Perhaps I was tired of cities," he said. "Or perhaps I found something here that I couldn't find anywhere else." Charlotte met his gaze, searching for any hint of insincerity, but found none. "And what is it you found, William?" He didn't answer right away, instead guiding her through a turn, the candlelight reflecting off the polished floor. "Someone worth staying for," he said finally, his voice low but clear. "Someone I'd like to build a future with, if she'll have me." Charlotte's breath caught in her throat, and for a moment she didn't know what to say. She had grown so accustomed to being self-reliant, to not needing anyone, that the idea of opening her heart to someone had seemed foreign. Yet here was William, sincere and steady, asking for her trust. "I didn't expect this," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I'm glad." "Is that a yes?" he asked, his eyes hopeful. "It is," she replied, a smile spreading across her face. "I'd like to see where this leads." As the clock struck midnight, signaling the arrival of Christmas, the grand hall erupted in cheers. Couples embraced, friends toasted, and the festive spirit filled the air. William and Charlotte found themselves standing by the grand windows that overlooked the market square, the snow falling gently outside, coating the world in a soft, white blanket. "Thank you for inviting me," Charlotte said, turning to William. "It's been a wonderful evening." "It doesn't have to end here," he said, his tone light but his meaning clear. "I want to see you more often, Charlotte. I want to know what makes you happy, what dreams you have, and how I can be a part of them." Charlotte felt a flutter in her chest, a mix of excitement and nerves. "You've already made this Christmas more special than any I can remember," she said. "And I'd like to see where this leads to." William's smile was warm, and he reached out, gently taking her hand. "Then let's find out together." As the bells of Christmas rang out across Frosthaven, a new chapter began for William and Charlotte. It was a courtship that grew steadily, marked by quiet moments, shared laughter, and a sense of companionship that felt like the beginning of something lasting. In the weeks that followed, William threw himself into the task of renovating the old mill, determined to breathe new life into the building. Charlotte would often visit, bringing him warm meals and lending an ear as he shared his plans and ideas. She found herself drawn to his diligence and passion, the way he approached each challenge with a calm, methodical approach. And as the days turned into weeks, the walls of the mill began to take shape, the sound of hammers and saws mingling with the laughter and chatter that filled the inn. William's presence had become a fixture in Charlotte's life, and she found herself cherishing the quiet moments they shared, the evening strolls through the snow-covered streets, the long conversations by the fireside, the way their hands would brush against each other, sending a spark of electricity through her. It was a slow, gentle dance, a courtship that blossomed like the first buds of spring. There were no grand gestures or sweeping declarations, just a quiet understanding that they were walking this path together, each step leading them closer to a future they were both eager to explore. And as the months passed, the old mill was transformed, the whir of machinery and the hum of activity breathing new life into the once-forgotten building. William's dreams were coming to fruition, and Charlotte found herself equally invested in the project, offering her insights and lending a hand wherever she could. The Christmas market that year was a joyous affair, the streets bustling with the energy of the town's residents. As William and Charlotte strolled through the stalls, hand in hand, they couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought them to this moment. It was a journey marked by quiet moments and unspoken connections, a dance of two hearts finding their way to one another. And in that moment, as the snow fell gently around them, and the sounds of laughter and music filled the air, they knew that this Christmas, and every Christmas after, would hold a special place in their hearts, a testament to the power of trust, companionship, and the magic that can blossom when two souls find each other.